I wonder how many of you people have heard of John Piper. Not that he's very significant. I mean, I've never heard of him before I caught this video I'm responding to. Seems to me he's just another face in a seemingly endless sea of evangelical preaching faces out there. I bring him up because I want to respond to his claim, featured on the Gospel Coalition's YouTube channel, that we can trust the 66 books of the Bible, that we can in fact stake our lives on these books. How does he back up his claim that the Bible is trustworthy? Well, just how any evangelical Christian would, by saying how trustworthy the Bible is. Well, why don't we see how trustworthy, say, 27 of those books are? The 27 books in the New Testament, maybe. For those of you who are old hands at this, I apologize for going back to Bible 101, but on the off chance that somebody might learn something, I feel it necessary to go back to the basics. All 27 books in the New Testament were translated into English from Greek manuscripts that date as far back as the 1st century. It doesn't matter which English version of the Bible you own. They were all translated from the original Greek manuscripts modern scholars study to this day. The King James Version, the New International Version, the New Revised Standard Version, the New American Standard Version. Each one of those, and others, are all deeply rooted in ancient Greek texts that modern scholars spend their lives studying. Serving as chairman of the Department of Religious Studies at the University of North Carolina is Professor Bart Ehrman. Mr. Ehrman has spent his entire adult life studying the Greek manuscripts of the New Testament. In his book, Misquoting Jesus, Professor Ehrman discusses in illuminating detail the vast amounts of change the Greek manuscripts of the New Testament underwent throughout the centuries. Some of these changes contradict the Christian belief that the Bible is the inerrant Word of God that has been preserved by Him. So naturally, there were some objections to some of what Professor Ehrman had to say. In response to these objections to his book by evangelical quote-unquote scholars, Professor Ehrman highlights 7 facts that are nothing new to today's textual critics. We do not have any of the original manuscripts of any of the books of the New Testament, but only copies, over 5,000 copies, just in the Greek language in which these books were written. Most of these copies are centuries removed from the originals. All of these copies contain mistakes, both great and small, as scribes inadvertently or intentionally altered the text. The vast majority of these changes are insignificant, immaterial, and of no importance for the meaning of the passages in which they were found. Others, however, are quite significant. Sometimes the meaning of a verse, a passage, or an entire book depends on which textual variants the scholar decides are original. These decisions are sometimes relatively simple to make, but in other instances they are exceedingly difficult, even for scholars who have spent years working on the problem. As a result, there are many passages of the New Testament where scholars continue to debate the original wording, and there are some in which we will probably never know what the scholars originally wrote. So a celebrated scholar who took the trouble to learn Greek and Latin to read the original Greek manuscripts of the New Testament is pretty much saying that the English text which Christians read each Sunday is based on Greek manuscripts that even highly trained textual scholars have a hard time deciphering the original meaning from. Yeah, I'd say the 27 books of the New Testament are not very trustworthy. As for the Old Testament, I could probably rattle on about the Dead Sea Scrolls, footnotes in the New Revised Standard Version that make it clear that the translators aren't sure what the original text was, and so on and so forth. But seeing as how I only have 10 minutes, and I really need more than that to show how untrustworthy that grabastic mess really is. But I don't really feel that I need to. If over a third of the Bible is untrustworthy, I think it's safe to say that the rest is just as untrustworthy as the last 27.